The Parliament of the United States of America. The American Constitution vested the legislative powers of the Federation in a bicameral legislature known as the Congress. The upper and lower chambers are called the Senate and the House of Representatives respectively. The legislative powers of both the chambers are co-equal, except that money bill can only originate in the House of Representatives. But in effect, the Senate is more powerful than the House. The Senate enjoys certain executive and judicial powers which the House does not. The Senate is not only more powerful than the House, but is also the most powerful second chamber in the world. The Senate of the USA. Term of Senate. The senators are elected for a term of 6 years, one-third retiring every 2 years. The retiring senators are eligible for re-election. Rather, every good senator is elected over again. There are numerous examples of persons remaining members of the Senate for over 18 years. The Senate has a continuous life as it is never dissolved as a whole. Qualifications to be a member of Senate. The citizens of the USA with not less than 30 years of age can contest election to the Senate. They must have been residents of the USA for 9 years or at least. They must be residents of the state which they want to represent at the time of elections. They must not be holding any office of profit under the government of the United States. Composition of the American Senate. Members of Senate. The U.S. Congress is a bicameral legislature, the Senate being its upper chamber. The USA is now a federation of 50 states and the Senate represents all the states on the basis of parity. It has a strength of 100 members. Each Senate sends 2 senators irrespective of its size and population. Formerly, the senators were elected indirectly by the legislature of the states as provided for in the original constitution. But this method was given up in 1930 when the 17th Amendment to the Constitution was effected. The amendment provided for direct election of the senators by the people of the state concerned. Senators presiding office. The Vice President of the USA, not being its member, is the ex officio chairman of the Senate. He is neither the leader of the majority party, as is the case with the Speaker of the House of the Representatives, nor is he partisan in the performance of his duties. He does not have as much influence over legislation as is exercised by the Speaker of the House of Representatives. He is only a dignified presiding officer of the Senate without having any specific functions except that he is a moderator. He votes only in a case of a tie. He does not appoint the committees of the Senate, nor does he control the Senate through his power of recognition. The Senate also elects from among its own members a president pro tempore who presides in the absence of the vice president. He is in fact the nominee of the majority party in the Senate. The committees. The most significant aspect of organization of the Senate lies in the fact that it is divided into a number of committees, each of which performs a particular function of the Senate. Some most important committees are on finance, appropriation, foreign relations, judiciary, and interstate committee. Interstate commons. All issues before the Senate are referred to the relevant committees for opinion and advice. A senator cannot be the member of more than 2 committees simultaneous. The chairmanship of the committee is generally offered to a veteran senator. Powers of Senate. The Senate enjoys extensive legislative, financial, executive, judicial, and miscellaneous powers. These may be discussed as follows. Number 8. Legislative and financial powers. The Senate enjoys equal and coordinate legislative authority with the House of Representatives. Ordinary bills may be initiated in either house, but the money bills can only be originated in the lower house. But this privilege of the House of Representatives is not of much significance because the Senate has vast amounting powers. The Senate may strike out everything except the title of a money bill. It may even substitute an entirely new bill and may send the same back to the House. In case there is a disagreement between the two houses, a conference committee consisting of 3 to 9 members from each house is constituted to resolve the deadlock. Number B. Executive powers. The authors of the Constitution wished to make the Senate sort of privy council to aid and advise the President in the discharge of his executive functions. The Senate enjoys a unique position as a legislative organ in the world since the Constitution has conferred upon it certain direct executive powers to check monarchical ambition of the President. All high appointments made by the President are subject to the consent and advice of the Senate. But by the growth of convention known as senatorial courtesy, the President has acquired a lot of independent discretion in this connection. Number C. Control over foreign affairs. All treaties are negotiated and conducted in the name of the President, but all such treaties are subject to ratification by 2/3 majority of the Senate. The Foreign Affairs Committee of the Senate exercises considerable influence over the foreign policy of the United States. The President keeps himself in close touch with the committee and regularly acquaints it with the latest development in foreign policy. It may be noted that all such treaties and agreements are to be placed before the Senate in the final form when it is difficult for it to withhold assent. Yet no wise president will launch his foreign policy without taking the Senate into his confidence. Number 6. Judicial powers. The Senate is the court of impeachment of the President, Vice President, and other high-ranking officials of the United States. The charges are to be preferred by the House of Representatives and the impeachment is to be conducted by the Senate. The Senate turns into a regular judicial tribunal when it sits as a court. Prosecution is conducted by a committee of members of the House of Representatives specially appointed for this purpose. The proceedings of impeachment are held the Committee of the Judiciary of the Senate, which is then presided over by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Again, judges of the Supreme Court are appointed by the President with consent and advice of the Senate. Thus, the Senate has a lot of judicial patronage in its hands. Miscellaneous powers. Number 8. The Senate shares with the House of Representatives the power to propose amendments to the Constitution. Number B. The Senate decides the vice presidential election when no candidate gets an absolute majority of votes in the election and elects one out of the two candidates securing highest votes. Number E. The Senate appoints committees to investigate and report on the administration of the President. The committees expose the scandals and inefficiency of the administration, if any. Senate causes of its strength, not a subordinate branch. In addition to that free general functions which the founding fathers of the Constitution assigned to the Senate, it is also a legislative body. but it is a coordinate body and not a subordinate branch of Congress, and exercises co-equal powers with the House of Representatives in making the national laws. There is no law in the United States as it is in Britain which empowers the House of Representatives to veto the Senate. Conference committees. In case of disagreements between the Senate and the House of Representatives, the differences are resolved through conference committee. The members of this committee, called managers, are equally drawn, generally 3 and in exceptional case 5 from each chamber, and they confer together political rule of the senators. Senators are a somewhat different breed of the political animal from the average representatives. The senator represent, as compared to the representatives, more people and greater areas, and thus are not subject to the fluctuating public opinion and personal idiosyncrasies of the electors of a particular locality. Senatorial solidarity. Closely allied to it is solidarity exhibited by the senators. In a sense, the Senate is a mutual protection society. Each senator jealously guards the rights and privileges of others, irrespective of party ties, and whenever an onslaught had been made to break its solidarity, as Roosevelt did to bypass the traditional method of senatorial courtesy in 1938, it was always stood together. Independent spirit. One of the most important factors which accounts for the authority and independence of the senators is the continuity, stability, and traditions of the chamber, which the House of Representatives has not been able to develop. The entire membership of the House of Representatives must stand for re-election every 2 years, and every time it is faced with the laborious task of reorganizing itself. Conservative character. The constitution makers had thought that the Senate would prove the bulwark of conservatism. They had accordingly designed it and given a special power so that it might serve as a check on the more radical House of Representatives. Influence on foreign policy. The Senate has been the congressional spokesman on foreign policy, and the House its junior partners. It is due to the senators' treaty ratifying authority and its veto powers over presidential appointments of ambassadors, ministers, and other important officials. The Senate can also influence the foreign policy through investigations. House of Representatives of the United States of America. A qualification to be member of the House. A candidate for election to the House of Representatives must possess the following qualifications. Number 1, he must be at least 25 years of age. Number 2, he must have been a citizen of the USA for at least 7 years. Number 3, he must be a resident of the state from which he wants to contest election. In some states, the candidate is also required to be the resident of the constituency from which he wants to contest election. This is known as the locality rule. He must not hold any office of profit under the government of the United States. Number B, privileges. Number 1, each member is entitled to a fixed salary and several allowances. Number 2, he is allowed to write and send letters to in his constituency free of postage. Number 3, he enjoys immunity against prosecution for anything said in the House. Composition of the House of Representatives. Members of the House. While the Senate represents the states on the federal principle of equality, The House of Representatives represents the U.S. citizen on national principle based on population. The first House of Representatives consisted of 65 members, but now its membership is permanently frozen at 435 unless changed by a law of the Congress. The House of Representatives consists of 435 members. The number of representatives for each state is fixed by the Congress in proportion to its population. Normally, 500,000 persons send one representative. The Constitution, however, lays down that no representative shall represent less than 30,000 citizens, and each state must send at least one representative. The term of the House of Representatives is for 2 years. It cannot be dissolved earlier. It meets at regular intervals. The special sessions can be convened by the President at any time. The House meets every year on 3rd of January and remains in sessions until its members vote to adjourn. Both the houses adjourn simultaneously. In a disagreement on adjournment, the President's decision is final. Committee of the House. The House elects a member of standing and regular committees from amongst its members. These committees examine all bills referred to them, and in most cases, these committees introduce the bills in the House. The Speaker. The House elects its own Speaker, who presides over the sessions. The election of the Speaker is held purely on party lines. He is the nominee of the majority party. The Speaker of the House of the Representatives is a partisan and openly favors the party to which he belongs. The Speaker of the House of the Representatives comes down from his chair and openly takes part in debates. The Speaker of the House of the Representatives is virtually the leader of the majority party, and legislative leadership devolves upon him. In a parliamentary democracy like England, the leadership of the House lies in the hands of the executive, but in the USA, leadership is vested in the Speaker because of the absence of the executive from the House. Powers of the House of the Representatives. Number 1, legislative powers. As compared to the Senate, the House of Representatives has less authority. It enjoys co-equal and coordinate authority with the Senate in legislative and financial spheres. Ordinary bills can originate in any one of the houses, but money bills can be initiated in the House of Representatives only. But this privilege of the House is not of much significance because the Senate can amend or reject both ordinary or money bills. In case of disagreement, the decision is either taken through mutual give and take or a conference committee consisting of 3 to 9 members from each house is constituted to resolve the deadlock. It helps its settlement of the issue. Number 2, absence of executive authority. The House has got no executive powers because the executive is neither responsible to nor removable as in the parliamentary system, nor does it possess any direct executive powers and control like the Senate. Number 3, judicial powers. It shares the judicial powers of the Senate in the sense that charges against the President and other federal officials for impeachment are to be preferred by it. Number 4, electoral powers. It decides the election of the President when no candidate secures an absolute majority of votes. It elects one out of the 3 candidates securing the highest votes. Number 5, Constitution amending powers. It shares with the Senate the power to propose amendments to the Constitution. Number 6, declaration of war. The House shares with the Senate the power to declare war, but the Constitution does not permit the House to share its treaty ratifying powers. Thank you, viewers.